Hi, I'm Captain Larry Bell with Texas Fishing Tips, and this is your weekly fishing report.
Alrighty, all up here, third chain of islands, Belding Lake, all this area around here, tons of reefs that are all up there. If you fish this area, you know what this is all about. Belding Reef, the cut through, great area. Uh, One of the things that's kind of been happening, been paying attention to our weather stuff, winds have kicked back in again for us. So this is one of these areas that's going to be kind of blown out for you because it's going to catch a lot of wind. Now, if you can get on the inside of this shell bar here at Belding's Reef, you can. That's not a problem. It's got a little cut through there. If you know where that cut through is, get into it. If not, come all the way through the old ICW there by Belding Lake and pop out into Mesquite and come around into the third chain and get into it that way. It's been scattered redfish that have been in here. One or here, two here, whatever. And then maybe some scattered drum as well have been up in this area, but catching a lot of trout along this. The thing too also is, we're on the backside or fixing to be full moon, going to be on the backside later in the week. So one thing that you always need to do when you're in and around big full moon is downsize your bait profiles. You need to throw a smaller bait. Morning time bite's going to be pretty good. Evening time bite's going to be pretty good. Midday bite's going to be so-so, if not to a point of being non-existent. So we're kind of starting to see that. Tides are really pushing out of here. We got a little bit of a decent tide in the mornings, and then as the day progresses, that moon starts to rise. It's really sucking a lot of water out of here, so you need to be aware, especially over the next few days, of that, because it's going to affect a lot of your fishing depending on where you're trying to fish. Getting on the inside of Belding Reef here, again, work all this here. We would probably want to start throwing you a weedless setup. Again, with this water being pulled out of here like this, it's going to make it a little difficult to throw it with the hook. If you've got plenty of experience doing that, it shouldn't be too much of a problem for you. You may get hung up ever so often, but if you just want to avoid that altogether, just get you a 1/8 ounce, 16th ounce weedless setup, keel hook that's got, or a keel, keel where the weight is weighted at the bottom, so when you set that in there through that bait, that you won't have a problem hooking that thing in there, and you don't have to worry about getting hung up on your shell. But the one thing that you really will need to do technique wise is you'll need to make sure you got a leader that's on that line. Make sure that you can just bounce it off that, because all the shell that's in here, it will nick that thing up, and if you get a decent fish caught in this area, you're probably going to break you off, or it may pop off on you. So just be aware of that. Make sure that you kind of give you something, probably a 20 to 25 pound leader material on there. Fluoro to help that abrasion resistance is probably the best. At least that's what I use a lot of. Working all the inside of third chain here, come to the outside, come down to an area called the runway, all the way as you head down toward Cedar Flats or Cedar Bayou, all this area down here, up and down this shoreline. Great grass beds that are in here. Again, tide, make sure that you're paying attention to it. Have fish starting to show up here. Trout starting to show up on these areas here, up and down this. Get down to the flat, all the way down off this point. Great area. This makes this a little difficult back down in here when that tide really does drop out. So you have to go out there to the sandbar, work the edges out there in a little bit deeper water. If you can get there early enough in the morning, again, your morning bites with the big full moon will be good as that moon is starting to set. You'll have probably till mid-morning, depending where you're at and what's going on with the bait activity. Just something you have to pay attention to watch how that takes place and what's going on. Good scattered redfish that are up and down this area here. Occasional flounder being pulled out of this. We've been throwing, again, down south burner shads have been the number one thing that we've been throwing a lot of in the original size. I have not thrown a tremendous amount of the supermodel in the down south. It's been pretty much the original in burners, and the burners has been white ice, twisted tea, chicken of the sea, magic grass, in all those flavors in both the original and the burner. You can try a few other colors. It just kind of depends on what your water clarity is going to be in these particular areas. Up around Belding Reef and the third chain there, that water's going to be pretty nasty. It's going to be burnt, blown out pretty good. So make sure that you got something chartreuse, orange, white to help make that stand out. The burner shads have those in the chartreuse. Little Johns have it in the chartreuse if you like to throw those. Of course, you can incorporate your scent involved with the Little Johns as well. So that's another feather in your cap there. If you throw that, that helps out with that. A lot of people like to throw gulp under popping corks. Not a bad idea, especially in that really blown out area up there when it's really nasty and dirty and muddy. With the amount of winds and stuff that we're going to be having in here and with the way our tidal flow is going to be, it's something you really need to take in consideration and see what's going to happen with that. Continue to work all this area up and down this to the corner, to the mouth, off the point. Find your shell. A lot of fish are starting to hold over shell. If you know areas that's got shell bars, shell reefs, shell pads, anything with shell on it, that's where you're going to find a majority of your fish in and around those particular things and that type of structure, both redfish and trout. Depending on the depth of your water around your shell, if you've got deeper edges, put that 1/8 ounce on there, starting to use the 1/8 ounce just a little bit more and just a tad bit deeper water. But again, with the tides really dropping out on you, you want to stay with that 1/16 ounce if you're going to fish that thigh to knee deep water in these particular areas. But again, look for your bait, incorporate that major and minor. Again, remember, your majors and minors are going to be, or your minors are going to be first thing in the morning, late in the evening. That's going to be your two best bite frames. So take that into consideration when you're working these areas. Down here on Allen's Bite, off this point down here, if you've ever fished this particular area, it is a spectacular little area. You got a little bit of a drop. You've got some shell that's in there. You've got sand in there. You've got grass. Man, you've got lots of great structure, especially with this time of year with trout really starting to fire now, starting to be over grass and hard-packed sand and shell areas. This area right here really becomes a major area that you'll want to take note of in fish. You can push your boat up there shallow. You've got deep guts that run up and down this area, all up and down Allen's, out in front of St. Joe as you head down toward the Mott. You got great little back lake mouths that drop off into these areas here that are good areas to really take note of and fish. You can walk up into those areas and fish those. The bottom is really good in these areas. So again, we're going to be in the full moon phase. Morning bite's going to be your best bite. Evening bite's going to be your second best bite. Low light conditions, moon rising, moon setting, those are two of the best times right there. When you got that moon starting to come up and that sun starting to set, it's just a really great time frame there. So you got about, sometimes it can be more or less, but you got an hour roughly of opportunities there in areas, as long as you set yourself up to catch fish in the right areas. Looking for bait, again, the structure I just talked about, the grass, the shell, the drop-offs, the edges, all that exists up and down this particular area here at Allen's. If you fish this, and then you can get back up into Allen's Bite, back down and around here, push up here on both this inland shoreline, this little back lake that pops into here. You get to the back and it accesses you to some other back lakes that go back a little further. Depending on what your boat capabilities are, if you're able to get into shallow water, then those areas back there, you open yourself up for more opportunities for redfish, for black drum, for decent size, good trout with the new slot limit that's in place, the 17 to 23. You give yourself opportunities for those tiles fish or that type of fish. Flounder as well in some of the guts and edges and the shorelines that are all back in this area. It's just a great little area. Again, and you can get protection from the winds. And like I say, we've had high winds here the last couple of days. The next few days, it looks like it's going to be pretty much the same style stuff. It's going to be pretty windy. Now, you may take a little bit of a tail whipping getting across Aransas Bay. So just one of those things you just have to contend with. So take that in consideration when you're wanting to try to fish these types of areas. All up and down St. Joe Island is just a great area. There's lots and lots of fishing area up and down this. Nobody should ever have to crowd anybody up and down this shoreline. You should have yourself plenty of room. Give each other and be courteous to each other out here on the water. This is a great place to be. Everybody just wants to relax and be out on the water and have a good time and fishing. So just give each other plenty of room to do that, because there's plenty of fishing area all up and down here. You got back lake mouths. Again, all these areas are great areas that you want to try to start with or end up with or work yourself to up and down these shorelines. Fish the grass line, fish the deeper water, fish the shallow water, see what the bait's doing, see what your bait line is, see what the water clarity is. Pay attention to your windage, and again, it's going to be pretty high for the majority of this week. We'll have some lulls here and there, but the majority of it's going to be pretty tough, so just make sure that you're aware. Also, make sure you got plenty of water and stuff. We got some pretty hot weather that's in front of us as well, so make sure you take care of yourself from that standpoint. And as you fish these areas, especially if you're wading, you can kind of beat that heat, which is one of the things that I love to be able to do is get people in the water to work these areas. Trout showing up and down these shorelines. Down south, burner shads has been good for us. The original size have been good for us in catching all these. The marker 54 jerk shrimp has been really good, bouncing that off the bottom, free lining it. Haven't done too much of it under a popping cork. Another thing too, I've mentioned it before, is there is a weather app out there. It's called 361 Fishing. That if you want to check into that helps you with those particular things, with your tides, your winds, what's going on with the majors and minors, all that good stuff. All that information is in one finger step right there that you can locate that and pull it up. So give that a look if that is something that you are interested in. Again, work the shell. A lot of fish are showing up on the shell bars and shell pads and shell reefs, guts, a little bit deeper water depending on what your tide is. All this area up and down here are areas that you really want to target and looking for your fish. Copano Reef, all out here on the shoreline of either side of this bar, you can get on that. Now, one thing about Copano, man, it's a small estuary as far as a base system goes compared to some of the other base systems we have around here, but it can be a rough son of a gun. It can get super rough out here on this thing. So make sure you look at this. Make sure that you are well anchored if you're going to fish out here on this reef, because when those waves start breaking, all that power pole sometimes may not just be good enough. So if you got a conventional anchor and you're going to fish out here on the reef side of that, you may want to consider throwing that. So anyway, that said, up and down this here, we found in trout that are up and down on either side of this, finding a bait cluster that's working up and down these, rafting mullet. You've got shrimp that are busting out here on this thing, all the way up here to the shoreline. Up here on this hard-packed sand, we're finding some scattered flounder. Always get surprised when I catch a flounder. It's because I'm not ever really trying to target a flounder, but sometimes when we come across them, it's like, wait, it's a flounder. So it's pretty cool. So anyway, there are some flounder that are up and down this shoreline that you may want to try to target if that is something that you like to do. And that's a whole different kind of style of fishing. But if you are adept to doing that, then fire away at them. There are some that are scattered up and down. There are redfish that are down on this thing, more down on the corners on the inside here toward Mission. We found the redfish up in there. Now, it's not been just big groups of them, but they've been kind of scattered out. Find one here, two there, one here. Just something you may have to just work and locate and try to find. Get out and get in these areas that you can wade. Again, some of the areas in Mission Bay are not going to be wadeable because it's just too muddy to do that. So, using your trolling motor, drifting it, working the reefs, the little small reefs that are in there. There's a bunch of them that are in there, but little shell pads. Continue to work those. If you can kind of get you a pattern in there, you can locate some fish in and around these areas, trout and redfish both. There at North Pass, out here on the mouth of this, you got some nice little areas out here on the front. Great little wading area, great bottom there. Work your down souths, work your mirror lure, Little Johns, provokers. Even the mirror lure XLs have been pretty good. Watermelon red specifically for me. The molting color, golden red glitter has been really good, because when you throw that Little John golden red glitter, it's got a nice little shrimp look to it in the water with the collar. The color makes it look like that, and it's got a real darting action to it, so it's a really effective bait. So if you're in between feed periods in the majors and minors, you can really chunk that there, and you can get your reactionary strikes with fish. Again, work up and down the shoreline. You can even come back down and head toward Turtle Pen, work this side of it if you'd like. Finding more fish around the shell. Few less fish here. You got some, if you fish this area back here, you know that there's some little guts and some drops and little pools that are back in here that can hold fish from time to time. But again, your key thing here, looking for structure. That's considered structure. Your grass, looking for bait primarily in some of these areas, and just spend some time back here. If you get here early enough in the morning to work the minors, when that moon is starting to set, or if you want to come back here later in the afternoon, depending on what the wind is doing, just know that from the southeast breeze, this particular shoreline gets beat up pretty good. So it's just something to take in consideration. So you may want to head back over toward Swan Lake side, fish that area over there if you want, because that'll be pretty protected from a southeast breeze. Or you can get up into Mission, you can get up on that west shoreline inside there, and you can work that area there either from the boat or in the water. So again, the majors and minors are always key. Locating bait. The main baits that we've been throwing are down south originals and burner shads, a few mirror lures in here. You know, gold spoon's always a great thing. Gold spoon, just an old time-tested standard that you can tie on, and you can chunk it and just work and work and work, and you'll locate some fish with it. But again, work these back shorelines. Pay attention to what your wind's doing, especially this upcoming week. Again, downsize your profile baits with this big full moon into place, and you'll locate fish.
Thanks for watching. I'm Captain Larry Bell.